Voices. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. My name is Rick Ector. I am a local firearms instructor, gun rights advocate. It is indeed my honor that you all are here today. There's been a lot of news that a lot of people are not really finding out about in a timely fashion. The state of Michigan, a while back, approximately 90 plus days ago, they passed 4 laws that are very significant with respect to gun rights and gun ownership. If you are a gun owner, if you are a person who is entertaining the idea of buying a firearm, bringing a firearm into your family, if you are interested in complying with the law, of course it is always important that you actually know what the gun laws actually are. And some people have made it a point to make it known that they have not really seen a lot of information being published about these gun laws that were recently enacted and just a few days ago actually took force. By took force means, hey, they can start punishing you for these offenses should they actually catch you in violation. Well, what are these laws that they are enforcing now? There is a law called a red flag law. Some of you may have heard of that. We're going to definitely be talking about that today. There is also a firearm storage law that took effect. In addition to that, there is a registration law. In the state of Michigan, it has been required to register handguns going all the way back to, I believe it was 1927 when the Michigan Firearms Act was enacted. Back then, it only applied to pistols. Right now, long guns, that is rifles and shotguns, are in the crosshairs, to use the metaphor, and that they are looking to at least address what they feel. I think it's a mistakenly stated comment that they feel that it's a loophole, right? There are no such things as loopholes, my opinion. These are just features in the law that the anti-gunners do not like. But before I jump head first into the presentation, I am sincerely thankful that all of you are here. Some of you I've actually have met before and in person, and I am truly glad that you came out to come listen to the presentation. I did this presentation once before, about a month ago. It was well received, but in planning it, because I didn't make it a free event, I'm thinking the local news stations were using that as a justification because I charged like a nominal fee. I think it was like $25 to attend the seminar. And then they used that as a justification not to let people know about it. Well, okay, I said, okay, I learned. It's free, 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 free. Tell the world about it. And then, no, they still didn't cover it. I said, okay, they were just playing with me, just pulling my leg. But so it is. And yeah, you know, I can start talking about my own pet theories about conspiracies and not wanting people to know about the law and to catch them unawares and have them bear the full brunt and the force of the law. But no, I'm not going to go in full conspiracy mode, not today. Before I dive into the subject matter in great detail, just want to give you just a little information about me if we had not met before. City of Detroit resident, was a person who really was not brought up with guns during my rear end and in my youth. It was something I saw other people do. I really had no interest in it. I did own a home, you know, I was married, kids, you know, working in corporate America, doing the whole thing. And life was just busy. I mean, if you've ever been married and if you've ever had small kids, you know how things can, life can really zoom by because you have like an endless list of chores and things that need addressing. And so I had heard about this concealed pistol license approximately, I believe it was either 2000 or 2001, when the state of Michigan decided to go to what's known as a shall issue system of licensing. Shall issue means that if you meet all the requirements for a Michigan concealed pistol license, upon your successful application, payment of the fee, and passing a background check, the state of Michigan shall give you your concealed pistol license. Well, before shall issue, we had a very different scheme in place. Under this scheme, may issue, it was a system that was limited to only allowing special people or athletes, movie stars, politicians, people who were deemed to be more important than the common folk. And so when this law changed, when the law changed in 2001, it really was a major civil rights movement act that actually got implemented. The fact that your basic, core, fundamental right as an American was compromised, your right to keep and bear arms. And many people were predicting that a lot of things were not going to be positive. They were thinking that there would be blood in the streets, that these heathens in the major urban areas and the outlying suburbs, they were just bloodthirsty killers who just needed an opportunity, let alone access to a firearm to actually do those evil deeds and to hurt and harm their fellow citizens. And to make it concrete, they actually put it in the law, to their detriment that they found later. They actually put it in the law that the state must compile statistics on firearms and the people who use those firearms and commit crimes with them. The interesting thing, the thing that bears out, the thing that they discovered was that people who actually qualified to get this Michigan concealed pistol license were actually more law-abiding than the average citizen. As a matter of fact, they are more law-abiding than law enforcement officers. So really they're collecting all of this data and they're not really publicizing it because it doesn't make their point in their propaganda machine to speak evil about firearms. So, did the gun rights thing and was robbed in my driveway at gunpoint, and I decided, you know what, I need to shore up this weakness. Got my concealed pistol license, started training, became a firearms instructor, racked up certifications, decided I wanted to teach, enjoy it immensely. I started a program where I started to train women how to operate firearms. There was a news story approximately 13 years ago where a woman's body was just found naked and she had been violated in the street. And I thought it was really distressing and disturbing. I invited 4 other fellow firearms trainers to come together and meet me at a gun range, and we'll go on Facebook and we'll ask women to join us, and we'll teach them how to shoot for free. What's free? I mean, like, free is like the magic word. You say free, someone's going to show up and look. Yes, try it. It's like green eggs and ham. Just try it. It's free. And I only had 50 women show up that first year. But talked with a lot of friends in the gun rights community. They say, hey, man, keep going. Keep going. Let's see where this thing goes. See where it goes. And so gradually you grow it. You go from 50 to 100, 200. You start doubling and you start growing by leaps and bounds. And then the 1 year where you think you would have your worst year, I'm talking about 2020, right? That's when everybody was thinking the world was going to end because, just because, right? And everything's shut down and everything's closed. We had our biggest event ever. We trained 1,936 women how to shoot in 2 days. Numbers have dropped a little bit, but we're still roughly averaging 1,500. So I figure by this year I will eclipse 10,000 for my life of doing these free shooting events for women. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about these gun laws. One gun law that is at our door is a storage law. Right? There has been some issues that related to storage. Well, what issues are we talking about? Well, there were a couple of cases that were highly publicized roughly a year ago. Roughly a year ago, there was one incident that happened, I believe it was at the University of Michigan. There was a guy who obviously had some mental issues. In the aftermath, we found out that he had been convicted of a felony and was precluded from owning a firearm. So when I tell you that this guy who committed this heinous, atrocious act, he did it with the firearm that he was statutorily barred from owning. So we had a felon with a gun go into the campus of Michigan State and proceeded to shoot and mow down a ton of students. And I remember when that incident unfolded. You know, you looked at the news media and it was almost surreal to me because in the aftermath, you had all of these law enforcement agencies. They were making these press conferences and they were like, man, we did some really great work. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? You did really great work. You say, well, we had people from the federal government, the county government, the local government, the state government. We had our plans and we issued the clarion call and we executed those plans and we did it really fast and we responded and we exceeded our expectations. In their exceeding their expectations, several young people were shot and killed by a guy who was walking on foot with a handgun. He shot everyone he wanted to shoot, and then he walked 6 miles all the way back home, and they could not find this guy for hours until he showed up back home in his neighborhood, and then people called the police and said, hey, he's home now. So hours later, they go to his house, and then this gentleman, well, I won't call him a gentleman, this monster killed himself. So this is half of the so-called reason why these draconian gun laws were rushed and enacted. And of course, the case you probably heard the most about because the narrative fits better the way that they like to talk about how evil guns are. In this particular scenario, we're talking about over in Oxford, the Oxford shooting, right? I believe the name of the family was the Crumleys. You had this obviously very disturbed young man who obviously had some problems. And if you followed some of the testimony and court proceedings, you know, he did all sorts of odd and weird things that I think anyone, if they paid any attention whatsoever as to the things that he was doing and allegedly the things that he was accused of doing, he obviously needed some help. And if you go through and actually go through and read all of the court transcripts, I started going through it, and after a certain point, I had seen enough. I know enough to know that if you are a parent who loves their child, you will, if you see that they are in need of some help, you will get them the help that they need. You won't entertain some of the wild and crazy things that they are contemplating. And so, yeah, unfortunately, he, the young Crumley gentleman, the student, he committed that atrocious crime and people died, right? I believe it was 4 people that died. Unprecedented, the state was bloodthirsty and it wanted its pound of flesh. This young man was tried as an adult. And while he was tried as an adult, he was given some godly sentence. Was it 60 years in prison? He'll probably die behind bars. The state decided that wasn't enough. The state decided, yes, he's an adult. We tried him as an adult. He's an adult in the eyes of the law, so we can punish him like an adult. Paradoxically, the state now wants to try the parents. The mother was convicted of 4 crimes. I forget which crime they were, but they were all felonies, right? And so I believe the top penalty is 15 years. So if you do them all concurrently, she's going to do 15 years in prison for what her son did. This is unprecedented, right? I'm a regular guy. I think I can follow laws decently, but how do you treat a person as an adult, right, legally, and then punish the parents? Well, we're in brave new territory now. We are entering a new landscape. A lot of interesting laws are going to be passed with some interesting interpretations and some conclusions that they want to implement. But having said that, I know I wanted to address safe storage. I mean, we actually have a safe storage law on the books. So for the purposes of demonstration, I want to make sure that we are on the same page when we talk about safe storage of firearms. Because we actually have a statute now, and we'll talk about that very soon, that requires it. A very fundamental rule of firearm safety is that you should ensure that your firearms are in a secure location. What that secure location works out to, before the law got implemented, before the law was implemented, you know, if you kept your gun in a location where children could not gain access to it so they can hurt themselves or hurt other people. It's a fundamental firearm safety rule. Most gun owners, most conscientious, law-abiding gun owners, who, especially those who have training, already know these things. Well, what are the people that we have to worry about? From respect to our rights, unfortunately, when I follow these stories when they unfold in the media, many times it's individuals who are barred from even owning a gun. So you have a person who's statutorily ineligible doing something ill-advised with a firearm, and it's paraded in the media like, see, look what happened. You know what? Can't trust you people. Unfortunately, there are some people who are not responsible with their firearms, and sometimes it's the most tragic of circumstances. Some cases that I seem to recall from just my personal memory is that there was one case where this one woman was at home by herself. She lived alone. She had some company that came over that brought their child with them. Okay, so this woman, she lived at home. Her bedroom is all the way upstairs, and all the way upstairs in a shoebox. Yeah, it's not a great storage method, but in a shoebox under her bed, all the way upstairs to her bedroom, which had a closed door. So she's entertaining company at her place. A friend and their child come over. This child leaves the area and goes upstairs without permission and starts rummaging through her things. She finds a gun. Yes, it was loaded, and yes, they killed her. That kid killed themselves with that gun. And yes, it is indeed a tragedy. Not only do you have to make sure that you're safeguarding your firearms in your residence, but if anybody ever comes over your house and they seem to have children that cannot police themselves or respect your property, yes, we need to address them. Some of the things that the state legislature is talking about is strictly punitive. And I say strictly punitive, in my opinion, the state of Michigan enacted this storage law to punish people who suffered a huge, unimaginable tragedy. I mean, to lose a family member is always tough, especially as you get older and you start to lose parents, right? Well, and I'm glad I can't speak to this personally, but from what I understand, it's immeasurably more difficult should you lose a child, let alone lose a child, your child, in your home who perished because your gun. Yeah, so when we look at what the state is doing or going to do if someone manages to hurt themselves because they weren't properly segregated from this firearm. I believe that implementing these new draconian penalties to people who are suffering among this tragedy, I think you get your pound of flesh and you make your statement in the media, but you do absolutely nothing to resolve the problem. The problem is kids gaining access to firearms. So you say, hey, let's have a law. Let's say a mandatory storage law. You have to lock your gun up in a case and lock it up. Well, if you actually look at the statute, well, you know what? There are some potential issues there. The state says that it must be locked up, right? Locked up. We're going to actually go into the actual way that they say that it has to be locked up. But one thing that I wanted to do before I start diving in and talking about the statute is that I wanted to actually demonstrate how to safely store a firearm. There is, oh, like where did it go? You're like, where did it go? My bag, where did my bag go? Well, I needed to find my bag because I put something in my bag. It's like that Brad Pitt movie. What's in the bag? You all remember the movie? Seven? Yeah. Love that movie. And so, yeah, I actually have a gun in church. But here's the thing. I'm following the law. I have permission. Here is a firearm, and I'm not sure if many of you are adequately familiar with the gun, but I always make sure that I clear the action, remove the magazine, and I have people who I know how to look and ensure that the firearm is not unloaded. Last thing I want to do is end up on the news, right? Rick Ector, teaching fundamental firearm safety, teaching about the gun laws, shoots himself, right? That'd be very embarrassing. Okay, so with respect to demonstrating how to safely secure your firearm, should you choose to do so. Did I give everyone a gun? I had to miss at least one of you. Who did I miss?
I came late.
You came late? You said I came late or you came wait?
I said I came late.
Oh, you did. I thought you said can't wait. I'm going to get you. So you have this key and you unlock it. And here's your firearm. You open the action such that you can see straight down into the gun. You can take a gun lock, run it completely through the firearm, and then you can secure it at the end. And yes, this firearm is locked. It is secure. There's no way that you can load this gun, let alone operate it. There's another style of lock that I also have, and this is a lockbox. And a lot of people talk about using lock boxes when they secure their firearms. And they're really cool because, yeah, you can lock it. No one can gain access to it. One drawback to this, though, is that if I have this lockbox, say, in a bedroom, and I have my gun locked in it, and let's say I'm not in my bedroom and someone kicks in my door or climbs through my window, I am separated from this lockbox. So, yeah, there's a problem. You could have multiple lock boxes. You could have a lock box collection. And every individual box has a gun in it and it's locked and stays all over the house. Do we have multiple keys, or were we fortunate enough to have the same lock in each one of those lock boxes? Problematic. Same thing goes with the table lock. Oh, gee, what's your solution, Rick? Well, I don't have any small children in my house, so I don't have to worry about securing my firearm. But, you know what? A question has been raised based on the way the statute is written. It could be a scenario where a so-called kid breaks into my home and finds a gun that wasn't secured, that I didn't have to secure because I'm there by myself. No one else lives there. A child under 18 has come across my gun. They found my gun because they broke in my house and stole it. And if they hurt themselves with my gun, or if they hurt someone else with my gun that wasn't secured, these are some very new, interesting areas of the law that we're going to keep a lot of attorneys and people working because of these unfortunate laws that were put on the books. Well, gee, Rick, you're bemoaning the law. What's your solution? Well, my solution is rather simple. Punishing people and heaping more and more punishment on top of punishment. Well, we're trying that. It doesn't seem to be working. Why don't we take a more proactive stance? Why don't we get to these kids when they're young, like they used to do, back when Terry was in elementary school? Long time ago back in the 50s, right?
You were writing on stone back then.
I mean, they would actually allow kids to bring guns to school, right? And then during lunch break, they go out into the woods or the areas out, and they would shoot cans or shoot various things off of a fence. It's called plinking. And it was a thing that they did. Everyone knew and understood fundamental firearm safety. Well, gee, Rick, you're advocating teaching kids how to shoot at school? Sure, we did it when I was in school. ROTC used to shoot in school. I mean, they didn't shoot any large calibers, but they shot the smallest caliber, like 22 LRs. They shot those in school as part of the program. But at the very basic level, start teaching kids when they're young. National Rifle Association teaches the Eddie Eagle program, award-winning program. When the children are first able to start walking and talking, you need to start talking to them about guns that early. And one of the very earliest things you can do is Eddie Eagle. Eddie Eagle is 4 points. It's if you see a gun, stop, don't touch, leave the area, tell a responsible adult. This is a very crucial program that at least gets them started. And then you start teaching your kids as they grow and as they get older. If you're going to the gun range, have them come to the gun range with you. If you can't get them at the indoor ranges, we have plenty of outdoor public ranges. Get them involved in organized activities. With respect to scouting, scouting still shoots firearms. And as a matter of fact, a child as young as 10 years of age and sometimes younger can be issued a state of Michigan hunting license. There is a proud hunting tradition here in the state of Michigan, and there's no reason why we can't continue that. As a matter of fact, with the loss of people promoting these programs, we're finding that with the deer population, it's overpopulated, that their numbers are exploding, and that they're being subjected to the reality of starvation, and they're dying a horrific death. You know, those deers could be, get this, harvested and use that meat, that venison, to feed people. A lot of people hunt and they donate to charity, or they take it home for themselves, stock the freezer. Bottom line, the point that I'm getting to is that education, indoctrination, and training is how we're going to address this kids and firearms problems. Legislating these draconian punishments for individuals that were not safe with their firearms, they thought they could hide the firearms from their kids. You can't hide anything from a kid. You really can't. Whether you're there or you're at work, they're running through the house and they're looking and searching. What are they looking for? Anything, everything. They know where the things are that you think are hidden. I mean, if you got interesting pictures around the house, if you have firearms that are not secured, I mean, if you have Christmas toys, birthday presents, stacked away, locked away, they know where they are and they're going to find them. Trust them to be kids. They are going to actually do what kids do. But with respect to this storage law that the state of Michigan, within a matter of days, just recently enacted. This is enrolled Senate Bill number 79. I just printed it. I thought it was going to have the associated MCL number off of it. I'll have all of your email addresses. I'll put something together and send that out if that proves useful to you. But in essence, enrolled Senate Bill 79. This has been passed and it's in force. It has been active for at least a couple of days now. Valentine's Day, I believe, was the effective date of these new laws. So here's Section 9.1. An individual who stores or leaves a firearm unattended on premises under an individual's control and who knows or reasonably should know a minor is or likely to be present on the premises shall do one of the following. You have to do one of these two things if you have a gun and a kid. You have to store the firearm in a locked box or container. I showed you guys what a locked box or container was, right? The other option, keep the firearm unloaded and lock the firearm with a locking device that properly engages to ensure the firearm inoperable by a person other than the owner or an authorized user, right? So they definitely want you to lock your guns up. Now, this is in the statute. It says this is what you have to do. You have to do this, supposedly. An individual who enters onto the premises of another person, stores or leaves a firearm unattended on the premises, and who knows or reasonably should know that a minor is likely to be present on those premises shall do one of the following. Store the firearm in a locked box or container, keep the firearm unloaded, and lock the firearm with a locking device that is properly engaged to render the firearm inoperable. So these are the requirements that are hard-coded in the law. This stuff, the way it's written, it doesn't seem like it's negotiable to me. Here's the thing. As I mentioned earlier, I live at home, alone. I have guns at the house. I am not going to lock up my guns if I don't have a kid. But yeah, Rick, you're probably at risk of some kid breaking into your house when you're not at home and stealing your gun and now putting my future in jeopardy because you can't control your kids, right? Let's see. An individual is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment of not more than 93 days or a fine of not more than $500 or both if an individual violates this situation. The minor obtains the gun. The minor either does one of the following. He exhibits the gun in a public place or possesses the firearm in the presence of another person in a careless or reckless manner. Your kid gets a hold of your gun, goes out, is seen with the gun, and does something inappropriate with the gun. You, as that gun owner, can be held guilty of a misdemeanor for 93 days. But yeah, that's relatively benign. It is a misdemeanor, so it is serious. Here's another section. We're going to start escalating. If an individual violates this law by failing to store or leave a firearm in the required manner, right, and a minor obtains the firearm, inflicts injury upon a minor or another person, that either hurts himself or someone else, you would then be guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment of not more than 5 years, a fine of $5,000, or both. Okay, so we have certainly escalated. Now, we're going to continue the escalation. You're like, Rick, how high are we going to go? Let's see. If an individual violates this law and fails to store a firearm in a required manner such that the minor obtains the firearm, discharges it, inflicts serious injury or impairment of a body function upon himself or another person, that individual, that is the gun owner, is guilty of a felony punishable by not more than 10 years or a fine of $7,500 or both. So yes, the outcomes are more severe and the punishment is becoming more and more severe. And of course, the top case, the top charge, the top scenario is when a minor obtains the firearm, discharges it, inflicts death upon himself or some other person. That gun owner will be guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment of not more than 15 years, a fine of $10,000, or both. So yes, we can see, excuse me?
Oh, well, you're gonna have a question.
Oh, yeah, sure. So yeah, as you can see, it's very harsh, very draconian, and it does not address the core issue. The core issue is what can we do to better protect our children? My answer is through education and training. That is how we make the difference. This current law, as it has been written, as it's been passed, as it's been enacted, it is not proactive. The only way you could possibly be proactive, the way I see it, if you did something even more draconian. That is, if you had roving bands of law enforcement conducting random searches upon your residence and saying, hey, your gun is not secured in the proper manner, and as a result of this raid, we're going to take you into custody, charge you with these offenses, and do our darndest to convict you. That, to me, is not America. That's not this country. I don't know what country that is, but I don't want to be there if we're authorizing that sort of behavior. I had a question. I believe you had a
Yeah.
question, sir?
I understand all that, and that makes all perfect sense. But me, coming from a selfish position, I have enough guns now where I bought a gun safe.
Okay.
And it's in a part of my house where if they wanted to look, they can look through a window and they can see my gun. And just knowing that they're locked up, no one's going to, I'm selfish. I don't want someone coming to my house and taking my guns. I want them to be in my house when I get home. So selfishly, I keep them locked up in the safe.
Okay. That was a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a question
No,
in that story?
nothing.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
I'm a firearms instructor, and when I teach,
yeah.
you know, one of the things that I do is, of course, I field a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the feedback is not actually a question.
Right.
So
I'm guilty.
No. Feedback is okay because we're informal here. You know, I have some leeway and some flexibility. When I'm teaching those CPL classes, man, people say, look, Rick, you told me if I was here on time at 9, you're going to get me out of here by 6. And I'm like, yes, but to do that, you have to help me. You have to stop asking me questions that are not on the agenda. Don't ask me about aliens from outer space and am I violating intergalactic law if I shoot them back. Yes, sir.
Specifically about the law that you said. It starts off, I see that they all build on the original statement you made about locking them up knowingly, there's children in the home.
Mm-hmm. And it escalates in terms of the actual outcome.
Yeah, so
What
it
happens?
builds off of that. So the question is, you kept stating if someone breaks in your house, it's a minor. You don't knowingly know that someone's going to gain access to your house, it's a minor. So right there, that, as far as I'm concerned, that takes you out of the equation.
Look, look. There are some analysis I've heard of the Crumley's mother being convicted of those 4 felonies for what her son did. There are people who strongly, vehemently disagree with that verdict. And there's other people out here that say, well, look, somebody has to be found guilty. We have to have our pound of flesh. And I'm looking at this scenario and I'm like, okay, great. Yes, there has been a loss of life. Yes, it's a tragedy. Yes, there were missed opportunities to give this young man the treatment and the help that he so rightly need and deserved. He was failed by not only his parents, he was failed by the school system. This is my personal opinion, right? But I think there's so much more we can do on the front end proactively to basically, to use the term I've heard someone else coin, to gun-proof your kids. Right? This is to do whatever you can to raise them in such a manner that a gun doesn't have any mystery or awe to it. It's just another thing. I have an arrangement with my grandkids, and yes, I'm a grandpa. Man, I've earned this grade. They come see grandpa. Grandpa's always talking about his gun, what it is, what it's for, what it's used for, how to operate it. If you're ever curious about it, let me know and we will talk about it. Whatever. We will do something. I want to kill your curiosity. I want you to look at it like a toaster. Nothing special. It has a purpose. You throw bread in it, out comes toast. Put bullets in it and you shoot it. That's what it is. It's a thing. Yes, sir. Did I answer your question?
Kind of.
No, well, see, that's why I asked. What did I not get?
The fact that you don't know that someone's going to break in your house. Say I've got a gun that's loaded.
Hmm?
I know there's no one else.
No one should be there.
Right?
No one should be
Take
there.
the sock door loaded, whatever.
It's an
Someone
open
breaks
legal
in
question.
And finds it.
It's an open legal question based on the way the statute was written.
Basically, right? And also, I didn't know that someone would break in, or that they would be underage.
You know, the government seems to be so secure about us protecting our guns from criminals. Why don't they protect us from the criminals who are breaking into our homes? Right, yeah. But yes, your point is, can you know what? It's an open legal question. And you know what? Eventually, I predict, you heard it here first, we're going to get an answer to that.
The second half of that is, as far as the storage goes, safe storage, you had said something about locking it up, unloaded, and my question is, can you have the gun magazine loaded, chambered, in a lockbox like that? Or does it?
I mean, if it's in a lockbox, no one can gain access to it.
But the law that you stated said something about being unloaded.
I think it's an either or.
Either or, yeah.
Okay, that's all.
I think the operable intent, if you will, is that they want it to be inaccessible. If it's in a lockbox, it's inaccessible. If you got a cable lock through it, it's inaccessible. Oh, here's the thing, right? It's a mess. Question.
So, I carry my firearm 24/7.
Okay.
I have a minor child in the house.
Okay.
While I'm carrying my firearm in the house with my minor child, am I now breaking the law?
I hope not. I don't think so. You have complete control and access to that firearm. It's in your possession. And here's the bigger question. Here's the bigger point I want to make. And I make this point when I teach the CPL class. You, by wearing that gun, simply by wearing it, what are you doing with it?
Concealing.
Not necessarily concealing it, even more basic than that. Just by having it on, you are doing what? You're using it. That is how you use a gun. Like one of the things I talk about in the CPL class is how do you use a gun? Do you understand what using a gun is? If you have a gun in your holster on your waistband, I'm saying you're using it. For what purpose am I insinuating that you are using it? Personal protection, yeah, even if you're at home. And yes, maybe I'm odd, but yeah, when I'm at home, I have a gun around. And it's loaded. Just in case, right? You know, interesting thing, from time to time I'll get these knocks on my door. And I'm like, well, gee, I haven't been out in days. Like, who in the heck is this? And then I'll open the door and it's like some young people that are startled that I'm there. And then suddenly my spider senses start tingling and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this was one of those, I'm going to knock on your front door, see if you're home, and then tiptoe around the back and break a window and then commit a burglary. That may have been what that is. Did you have a question, or was that?
I had a minor comment.
What's your comment?
He's talking about a very gray area, right? The zealous prosecutor and the anti-gunners will go for the throat on that.
Terry, you have an observation point you want to make?
Yeah, just real briefly on the gentleman's question there. You will not be prosecuted if someone breaks into your house and steals your gun and does something with it, because again, it is a intent crime. Whether the person's 15 or 16, the way the statute reads, and I understand where Rick's coming from, but from a legal perspective, the way the statute reads, you have to know someone, a minor is coming into your house. If you don't have a minor there, or you know a minor is coming into your house, I think stating that someone would break into, knowing someone's going to break in your house, that goes way too far. So there would not be it would be very difficult for a prosecutor to basically come forth and say, a 15-year-old broke into your house, committed a home invasion, actually home invasion first, which is a 25-year felony, because they walked in, grabbed a gun, and walked out, and did something with that gun. So I do not see that as a issue. But again, the problem is the way the law is written. It's kind of written in gray. It's written in lawyer, not written in normal. So that's why a lot of people get that question.
I know the law changes a lot, well, when it pertains to commission of a felony. Like, as you're committing a felony, things change in the law, right?
Well, correct, but in this case, if someone's broken into your house, they've committed a home invasion, 1, 2, or 3. If they grab it, either if they go in with a firearm or come out with a firearm, it's a home invasion first degree. So they've committed a felony, whether you've got the gun laying on the table, whether you've got it locked up, as long as there's no minors in the house at the time that you knew were going to be there, then you should be exempt from any prosecution.
So I have a question. So if this occurs, you still be potentially charged and then need to acquire an attorney to defend you for the situation based on the way the law has been.
So if that question is directed to me, I'll just say it this way. How could you be charged for someone breaking into your home
I hope not.
and taking your gun and doing something with it? The crime has been committed against you, and it is a home invasion. In this case, a home invasion 1, it's 20 or 25 years, I can't remember. But it's at least a 20-year felony that someone is committing. And they're not going to turn around and say, you didn't have your gun locked up. How do they know whether your gun was locked up or secured or not? I mean, yeah.
Show me your gun lock.
Well, I mean, there are
Doesn't
bigger.
a police report relieve you of that? The minute you make a police report, they're gonna inventory what was taken. The first thing you're gonna say is, they got my gun.
Well, let me just say this, I'll turn back to Rick. Again, I think you're focusing on an area that is highly unlikely, where someone has broken into your house, a kid, and the kid has committed a very serious felony, and the kid has taken your gun and other things, and now walks out and they're gonna charge you. That'll never stand.
Right. It'd be a hard one.
Is Pastor Buddy around?
He just walked out.
Oh, yeah, I want to show you the next video. I want to get Pastor Buddy to cue this up. We are transitioning over to the next topic, red flag laws.
Boo.
Okay.
You thought you would?
Hey, Rick?
Yes.
Because I'm intrigued with that thing in Oxford, not because, you know, it's...
Your son is attempting to reach you on your cellular device. Your son is attempting to reach you on your cellular device. Your son is attempting to reach you on your cellular device.
Involuntary manslaughter.
Sir, can I ask you a personal question?
Or negligent.
Sure.
In manslaughter.
From your legal opinion, you and I have not discussed it, right?
Correct.
What do you think of the verdict of the mother?
So I did the analysis, the legal analysis on CBS Stream. So I was there just about every day, and I saw probably 85% more of the trial. What this was, and I said this, to get to, the only charge she was charged with was involuntary manslaughter.
Manslaughter.
That's it. The only charge. And in order to do that, they had to show there was a reckless act, or she knew or should have known certain things. I think, and again, if anybody was here on the jury, I'll just say this, I think they completely got it wrong. This was about bad parenting, not about involuntary manslaughter. And this basically, if you look at the laws that Rick just talked about, the higher one, if you don't keep your gun locked up and something happens and someone gets it and death happens, that's what she was basically charged as, even though that law hadn't come into place. She was just charged with involuntary manslaughter. And legally, there was no way to get there. Now, if they would have charged child abuse, and as a result of child abuse, involuntary manslaughter, I personally could have lived with that. But we also have to remember, and I know this is being recorded, and I am conscious of it, it is an election year. And in this year, you have a politician, which is your prosecutor, who is up for election. And in all the cases that have happened over the last 4 years, I have yet to see Karen McDonald in any courtroom. So when you see, this was sending a message out, in my opinion, to gun owners that we're coming after you. Because I have said on TV that, quite honestly, if that kid would have went to school with a bomb, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But because the tool of choice was a firearm, that's why we are here, and that's why everybody, and one side note, I talked to another attorney this morning, and Rick, I'm sorry,
No, it's good
I
stuff.
talked to another
Good stuff.
attorney this morning, and he sat on the committee when they were talking about some of these laws, and one of the things Karen McDonald said was, we have enough laws on the books to prosecute people for these things. But what are they now doing? Demanding another law. Why? And in retrospect, these laws, I don't see any, and I'm assuming no one in here is a criminal, but when Rick does these classes, I rarely see it stacked with criminals saying, how do I get out of this? How do I get around this? Right? This is a measure to scare the gun-abiding citizen, and I'm telling you, 95% of everything you're doing now is probably already good enough. But this is just putting fear and other things in you. So, long story short, I disagree with the verdict simply because I did listen to the testimony, I did watch it, and I saw some legal maneuvering and wrangling that her having an affair has nothing to do with anything. Her dealing with her horses, and a lot of things were taken out of context. But anyway.
Yeah, but you being an attorney, you got to realize that she convicted herself with 5 words.
Which were?
I wouldn't have done anything different. That's what the jury took home. That's what the jury took to the deliberation room. Everything else that was said, it didn't mean a damn thing. I wouldn't have done anything different is what got that lady convicted.
So let me ask you a question. If she would have said, I would have waited around 5 minutes, or I would have did something else different, that would have said
anything different than that.
If she would have said she'd have done something different, that would have meant she was culpable of something. So the question becomes at that point, based on we have the opportunity to look at things in hindsight.
Sure.
And when someone looks at something, they can say, you should have did this, you should have did that. But at the time, and that's what the jury should have looked at, what did she know? And to me, it would have been negligent, it would have been involuntary manslaughter if she would have opened that bag, looked in the bag, saw a gun, zipped it back up and did nothing. That way she knew he had a firearm and did nothing. That day of school, it was all speculation. She had no knowledge he had a
That
firearm.
was negligence of the counselor and the dean that were at the meeting. They should, while the parents were in that meeting, they, by law, they can't open the kid's backpack because
Sure
that's
they
his
can.
locker.
Sure they can.
They were
Sure they
Yeah,
can.
they can.
Pardon?
They can.
They absolutely can.
They can.
On them school grounds.
If you heard, okay, let me bring y'all back in. Now, like I said, this case is still raw.
They do.
It's still in our public
By law, they can't
psyche,
do it.
but we must
They pull a copy,
move
that's how
on. Yes, sir.
Just real quick.
Real quick, he promises.
I'm catching
He
everything-
promises.
Yes, I'm catching everything right. The two major points to this law is minor and attended, and unattended firearms. Is that correct?
Well, see, there's a lot of
I mean, if I
things
just cut to the chase.
to round this out. There are a lot of things that kids can still do with guns, and it's still legal. And they actually itemize it still in the statute, right? Some of the things that a child can do, right? Let's see. This section does not apply to any of the following circumstances, right? Contains a firearm with the permission of the minor's parent or guardian. Uses a firearm under the supervision of a minor's parent, guardian, or individual who is 18 years of older, who was authorized by the person's parent or guardian. You can go ranching and farming. If it's part of the minor's employment contract. There's a ton of things in here that are actually itemized that are legal and is done typically with some type of supervision of the minor. This right here just screams at me as witch hunt. Let's get our pound of flesh and let's make an example and just confuse the heck out of everyone. Yes.
My take on this, in short, is it's the agenda and the narrative that will drive the judicial system in any case. They'll do what they want to do because that opens the door to it.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Next item up is red flag law. Yeah, this one is a really interesting law. As a matter of fact, I first found out about these cursed things several years ago. And as a matter of fact, I talk about it in this video because I'm basically just going to repeat it verbatim. So why don't I roll it? Pastor? 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 Pastor?
Pastor Buddy.
Pastor?
I'm sorry.
I gave him one job.
You see why that kind of irritated me? And come to find out, this battle is war that we're fighting. A lot of it is internal, what they call.
Is that volume good?
These guys are that. So the affronts that we have, and I think this brought my attention to something that I didn't know before. Maybe it enlightened you somewhat, pass it around. Earlier today, I read a town hall article that was left, none dare call it sedition. It goes on to explain more of the deep state with the CIA, the FBI, and the Justice Department, and who's working against this, or working for this impeachment. And I don't know about you, I got nobody really asking me how long it was on, but I think there's a great deal of value
brings to mind something I learned real early in the beginnings of the Tea Party. That when our founding fathers came together with the Constitution, I think it was Benjamin Franklin stepped out of the room they were working in and was asked, "What do you have here?" And he turned to the woman and said, "You have a republic if you can keep it." This is if you can keep it. So tonight, we're going to have a speaker, and I want to give a little bit of information as to the knowledge of our membership before I call Mr. Ector to come and speak to us on what they call the red flag laws. How many people understand what is meant by a red flag law? You just raise your hand so I got an idea. Okay, what does it refer to? And so I hope that gives Mr. Ector a little bit of information how in depth he needs to go to educate everybody as to how we are being fooled again. You know, we got a lot of people out there that want to take their rights the Second Amendment way. They can't do it directly. They'll find a roundabout way. In my opinion, this is one of the roundabout ways, one of the touchy-feely ways of who can be against that? Doesn't that sound reasonable? So at that, I'll call Mr. Ector up, and he will be speaking to us on the red flag laws, and hopefully get us a little bit more educated tonight.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? I know it's sagging enough to keep it away from the mouth, so I'll not come across as booming. It is indeed my joy and privilege to be before you all today because I get to talk about a topic that means a lot to me. It means everything to me that we have the Second Amendment. And with having the Second Amendment, we have the ability to use our arms, whether they are firearms or some other useful tool to defend ourselves. You know, it wasn't too long ago where our access to arms here in certain areas of the state of Michigan were not very open. The process was not open to everyone to participate. Specifically, it wasn't until 2001 that our state, the state of Michigan, went to a process of issuance of concealed pistol licenses to a process which was uniform across the state. Before 2001, if you wanted to get a concealed pistol license, you had to qualify under a very non-uniform set of standards. For example, some counties, if you merely asked for a concealed pistol license, they would just give it to you. Other counties, the county in which I was born and raised for 52 years, Wayne County, the process was a little more onerous. You had to qualify. You had to be a person of means. You had to be important. You had to occupy a certain job. You had to make a certain amount of money. You had to be a person who fit this very narrow band of circumstances which conveniently excluded a lot of people. It was a very devious program that existed. But it wasn't until 2001 in which we went to shall issue. And under shall issue licensing, anyone in the state of Michigan who was at least 21 years of age or older who took a qualifying class and could pass a background check, the state of Michigan would give you a concealed pistol license. And it was a great day for the state of Michigan because we allowed a greater expansion of individuals to use firearms, to use arms to protect themselves and their families outside of their homes. And that was a great tool because I will concede that prior to 2001, I wasn't, let's just be honest, I wasn't a real huge fan of guns. As a matter of fact, I was part of a generation in which the previous generation who had widely adopted guns, with this whole era of progress, with the civil rights movement, a lot of people just stopped giving importance to the Second Amendment and seeing it as being relevant. So around this era, 2001, I had been working in corporate America for a while. I'd gone to school, graduated from college, and the only gun that I owned was a 12-gauge shotgun. The only reason why I owned that 12-gauge shotgun was because the elders in my family tree, they sat me down and said, hey, Rick, you are a man now. You own a home. You have a family. It is the man's job to protect his home. You need a 12-gauge shotgun. So I went out and bought a 12-gauge shotgun. Didn't learn how to load it, but I had shells in case I had to figure it out one day, just in case someone was trying to barge into my home. And so this process went on until, I don't know, sometime after, maybe a year and a half later, during the time of year reminiscent of today, when it gets dark in the early afternoon, say 5 o'clock or so. I was coming home from work, and as I was pulling my car into the garage, I started looking at all this weird stuff that seemed out of place. And I started putzing around in the garage and putting stuff in various places. And once I was through rearranging things, I walked out of the garage and locked the door. And then to my surprise, there were two individuals I did not know who produced a firearm and pointed at me and announced a rivalry. Well, that was a very pivotal moment in my life because it let me know that regardless of how great of a person I am, there are people out there who don't think very highly of me. People who are willing to take whatever I have because they have the means of exacting violence and using a gun to do that. And so in the aftermath of this violent encounter, I had a decision to make. My decision was whether I was going to embrace the option of exploring the Second Amendment and gun rights and gun ownership and see if it was something that could prove useful to me. And that's the great thing that I loved about individuals who cared about the Second Amendment is that they fight for it every day, not only for themselves, but for other individuals who go through an epiphany and who change their minds later. And so as a consequence of being robbed and adopting the Second Amendment and training and becoming a firearms trainer and a gun rights activist here in Metro Detroit, there was a time in which I had a realization. And that realization is that guns is very important and that I need to take a more active role. I need to do more and to contribute and to make sure that the Second Amendment is there for other people. So it was in this path as a gun rights advocate that I received a phone call from a local TV station here in the Detroit area, Fox 2, they're actually based in Southern. And they were doing an interview with State Representative House Rep Robert Wittenberg. And Robert Wittenberg had came up with this law, this proposed legislation that he was trying to get introduced in the Michigan House. And I had never heard of these so-called extreme risk protection orders, or what some people are referring to as red flag laws. And one of the things that the proponents of these red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders, they try to portray them as a panacea or as a cure-all for the things that ail us as a society. We know that in our society, in our cities, our towns, our counties, and within our state, there's a certain subclass of people who are very violent, who are bad, who are criminals. These are people who think nothing more of robbing and pillaging and victimizing their current fellow citizens for their pure selfishness, laziness, and evil. And they do it with impunity. The one thing that a lot of people are not aware of is that we have had 2 Supreme Court decisions that have made it extremely
and abundantly clear as to whose responsibility it is to ensure your safety. These were two cases in which individuals were victimized. They were beaten, they were killed. Their families and their heirs wanted someone to answer for the heinous crimes that had been committed against their loved ones. In one case, someone had repeatedly called the police numerous times throughout the night, and the police failed to arrive in a timely fashion. The Supreme Court has made it abundantly clear that yes, someone is responsible for your safety. I will tell you who it is not. It is not the job of the government to protect you. That job, the job of protecting yourself and your family, that is your job. Okay? That is your job. And if you refuse to accept responsibility for your job, you cannot expect or anticipate any unit of government to come to your aid and to protect you. Yes, we have law enforcement officers at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level, whose job is to protect and to serve. But that is in a general sense. They do not guarantee that no one will be a crime victim. As a matter of fact, there are people who will villainize the police for whatever reason. As a matter of fact, in the city of Detroit, there was a police officer who was killed the other day. He had approximately 14 or 17 years on the job. He was thought very highly of. And they are in the process of exploring this other police officer who supposedly didn't come to the aid of that police officer when he was being attacked. The bottom line is that you are responsible for your safety. There are police officers, allegedly, who will not come to the aid of other police officers. Most assuredly, there's probably a few who won't come to your aid when you need assistance. Therefore, I very strongly urge that each and every one of you take on a more active role in your personal protection. With respect to red flag laws, knowing that it is not the job of the government to protect you, they, however, do not want you to protect yourself. For whatever reason, they want you to be wholly dependent on the government for your protection. However, they are not legally authorized or legally responsible for providing it. So, red flag laws. What is this red flag law business? Last year, I received a call from Fox 2, that's the radio station for the CB, this thing's not the CBS, it's Fox affiliate now. Showing my age now, this is gray hair, right? I remember when the networks were different call signs. But in any case, they wanted me to come down to the Fox 2 studios and listen to what they were talking about. They had State House Rep Robert Wittenberg down at Fox 2. He was talking about this great new legislation that's been sweeping the country by storm. As a matter of fact, as of this current date today, I looked at the latest stats. There are 17 states, plus the District of Columbia, D.C., that have already adopted red flag laws as of August 1st of this year. There are 4 other states that have introduced legislation to explore adopting red flag laws in their state. Unfortunately, of those 4 states that are looking at adopting and implementing red flag laws, Michigan is one of them. Yes, we have elected officials here in this state, Mr. Robert Wittenberg and others, who are desiring to implement red flag laws here in our state. well, gee, Rick, what is this red flag law business? When I was down at the Fox 2 station, he was being interviewed by the local TV station Fox 2, and they were asking him about red flag laws, and he's like, well, what is this stuff? Tell us about red flag laws. How great is it? And he was basically telling a great story. He was telling stories about there are people in our society who are bad folks who somehow are slipping through the cracks. They are presenting threats to our fellow citizens. However, they have done nothing wrong that rises to the level of law enforcement getting involved. And in this period or this state of uncertainty, when supposedly the law enforcement community can't do anything, these bad guys are killing and seriously hurting people. What these red flag laws, according to Wittenberg, would do would enact or provide an additional tool for law enforcement to keep all of us safe. He said that there's absolutely nothing to worry about, and this is some great legislation. So, being a gun rights advocate here in the state, I got a call from Fox 2 to be down there, and they were asking me for my take on this legislation. And I said, well, from what I'm hearing, it sounds great. I've never heard of it before. I said, just offhand, just listening to what you're telling me, my concern is this concept called due process. Due process. Some people may not be familiar with what due process is. Due process means is that, in a nutshell, if someone is trying to take away your freedom, if someone is trying to punish you, you have certain rights, rights of due process. You have the right to know who your accuser is. You have the right to know of what things, what evil they are accusing you of. You have the right to prepare a defense. You have a right to a trial and to keep all of your rights until such time a jury of your peers has convicted you of a crime and made you eligible to be punished. Well, with red flag laws, that whole concept of due process is thrown out of the window. Essentially, with red flag laws, anyone, for whatever reason, and you know what? I don't want to waste your time and tell you all of the circumstances or scenarios that exist in our society in which people don't like each other. You know, it'd be great if we all loved each other and we all behaved nicely, but hey, let's face it, sometimes some people don't get along. Maybe I don't like you because you are of a certain political affiliation. Maybe you support, in my opinion, the wrong candidate. Maybe you vote the wrong way. Maybe, just maybe, you're anti-gun, or maybe you're pro-gun. Whatever the reason, I don't like you. I mean, I don't like your Facebook post. Maybe you said something that offended me. Maybe you posted something about cats and doing something bad to animals. I don't like you. Some things can just be innocuous jokes, and then some people take it the wrong way. In these states in which they have these red flag laws, something as simple as an apparent joke can be taken out of context, and the police can be contacted. And a red flag law proceeding can be initiated. Under this legislation proposed by Robert Wittenberg, someone can make a complaint against you. Gee, Rick, what types of people? This is a literal laundry list of people. I'm going to recite to you the people, the classes of people who can initiate this right-stripping red flag law legislation against you. It could be a parent, son, daughter, brother, sister, grandparent, grandchild, uncle, aunt, first cousin, spouse, ex-spouse, parent of child in common. It could be someone you are dating, someone you used to date, someone who lives in the same household, someone with whom you used to live with in a household. It could be a former household member. It could be a family member. And get this, here's the catch-all phrase. It could be someone who you had a close relationship. In sum total, this is anyone that knows you. There are even people who can initiate a red flag law provision against you who do not know you. And this could be the law enforcement community. It could be a federal law enforcement officer, agent, a police officer, a sheriff, a deputy sheriff, a state police officer, or someone in the federal government. Literally, it could be anyone. So anyone could initiate one of these red flag proceedings against you. They tell this great story. It rises to a certain level of depravity and evil. So they decide to have a secret proceeding without notifying you, and they determine you have guns. You're a bad person. We're going to take your guns. We're going to come to your house at 4 o'clock in the morning during a pre-dawn raid. We're going to kick in your door. And if you resist us thinking that you're suffering a home invasion, we are willing to kill you so that we can take your guns. If they do not kill you during this raid, they will take your guns without due process. You will be considered guilty without the benefit of a trial. If you want your guns back, you will need to file a proceeding with the court at your expense. Get this, they took your property. They deprived you of your Second Amendment right. They deprived you of due process. You are guilty before you have been conducting a trial in which they assessed your guilt or innocence. And now you have to pay to explore getting your property back. And this is the solution. It's a non-solution. Here's the bigger issue. The bigger issue is if they think that you are a danger, then they should explore getting you some help. If you are mentally deficient, if you are evil, if you have something wrong with you, in every state in the union, there is already legislation that exists on the books to have someone who is considered a danger to themselves, to have them involuntarily picked up and held against their will for evaluation for a period of time. Generally construed as 48 to 72 hours. And after being held under observation, if you're not deemed to be a threat, you will be released. The focus is on the person. It is not on the person's property. The legislation that is proposed by Robert Wittenberg is to put the focus on your property. If this legislation was to be enacted, they will kick in your door, risk killing you to steal your property, and they will leave you there, even though the implied argument is you are a danger, but they have no qualms whatsoever about not giving you help. They've diagnosed you as being deficient, as dangerous, but they are not giving you help. They just want your guns. That's all it is. It's a naked gun grab. So whenever a politician is ever proposing some legislation, do not assume that everything that they tell you about the laws that they want on the books, that they're exactly what they say they are. You have to actually go to the state legislature's website and look this stuff up. Look these bills up and read them. Trust me, yes, they're not well-written prose. It doesn't rhyme. It doesn't sound good. They use all of these weird terms, but guess what? They define those terms. And yes, it can be rather boring. That's why we have coffee. Some of you saw me drinking coffee before I came up to the podium, to the microphone today. Drink coffee. Read it. You can understand this. In this information age, any information that we desire to learn about is on the internet. Most of you have a device in your possession right now, a cell phone if necessary. Read and look this stuff up. Because for whatever reason, there is a group of people who are working very hard and very diligently to take away your guns. I believe I know what that reason is. That reason is they know that whatever their ultimate plan for us, they can't do it if you are armed. The idea, the goal is to disarm you or to make you subject to having your arms taken away from you. Just think, all of you are here in this meeting today. You are all talking about quaint concepts and ideas such as liberty and freedom and justice. But what if your would-be overseers do not want you talking about such things? If you were subject to a red flag order, you could be silenced. You could have your guns and your right to dissent taken away from you. Heaven forbid we be one of those 17 states, along with the District of Columbia, in which the police, for whatever reason, after having determined that you should be subjected to a red flag, should have a pre-dawn raid executed upon your home, and if they don't kill you, they get to take away your guns and dare you to find or raise enough money to try to get your due process, to try to have your day in court.
Yes, like I
Drinking
said.
coffee every day didn't work.
Like I said, I believe that this legislation is nothing but pure evil. And when I use strong language like evil, people are like, well, Rick, are you like kind of exaggerating? Like, no, I'm not. It's very serious. For whatever reason, should they deem you to be a person that is a trouble, they can go through a secret proceeding and conduct a raid on your house. And as I said before, if they conduct this raid, they are at jeopardy of possibly killing you. The whole purpose is not to save you or give you help. No, they just want your gun. That's it. That's it. This is particularly chilling. At the time that I did this speech, a few years back, there were 17 red flag states. There's now, I believe, 20, I think Michigan is the 24th. You know, we just implemented it mere days ago. So, you know, the future, as I predicted a few years back, the future is here. They have succeeded. They have got their precious red flag orders. And as I stated in the video, it has absolutely nothing to do with getting you help. It's all about your guns. Because if you were a problem, they would take you under current law and get you some treatment. So, what in the world are we to do, right? We live in a red flag state. Well, gee, what are our options? I guess suffer through this law as best we can. Try to live, I guess, our best life. Try not to involve ourselves in certain situations in which we could be subjected to a red flag law. Les Brown, very popular motivational speaker, used to always say, OQP, OQP. Does anyone know what OQP was? Only quality people. Vet any and every person who desires to establish some type of relationship with you. All of the relationships that I talked about earlier, they're not all romantic relationships. They don't have to be. They can be familial, family, or friend relationships. The one catch-all phrase, the one catch-all classification that was under this red flag bill was anyone who claims to know you well. Well, gee, that's anybody. That's anybody. Rick's my Facebook friend. I feel like I know Rick. As a matter of fact, if I bump into Rick, I'm just going to walk over to him and just grab him and shake his hand. Right? No. You don't know these people. So, what do we do? Well, gee, I guess we're going to have to suffer through it. Because at any time, any one of us could be subjected to this stuff. Especially people that run around and accuse the government of infringing upon your rights. I could be a troublemaker. I could be a person who's starting to agitate the public, to invite them to do things like question your government and why they would do such a thing. And of course, with these laws on the books, they'll say something like, you're just paranoid. Oh, we would never do it to a good person. There are people in other states who are finding themselves waking up with police crashing through their homes and killing folks. I can't remember the name offhand, but it was what was her name? Breonna Taylor. She was at home with her boyfriend at the time.
She was sleeping.
She was sleeping, and the police had one of these so-called red flag orders, and to make injury even worse, I believe it was alleged that they didn't even knock on the door.
Right.
Didn't even knock. You know, it's one thing to be at home not expecting company at 3 o'clock in the morning, but gee, if you come into my house and I'm there, I did not invite you. What reasonable person would not think they were being subjected to a home invasion? I think you're totally unreasonable if you think, oh, it's probably the cops with the wrong address. Oh, we'll get this figured out in short order. And then we'll just sweep it under the rug and we'll have a great day. No, this law is severely flawed. But, you know, when I talk like this, they accuse me of being paranoid, crazy. I might be talking myself into a red flag order. But that's okay. That's okay. Tell the truth, shame the devil. That is for sure. Question, yes?
Now, if you are subject to a red flag law, won't that bar you from future gun purchases because it'll be kicked back through a background check?
For the length of the red flag order, you will be barred from owning and possessing a gun. One of the ways that they like presenting this red flag order, they keep using this word temporary. We will temporarily take your gun from you. And it is for your own good. Government knows best. And then when you are better after this temporary seizure of your firearm, well then, you know, you'll just get it back and it'll be a great world where it was before they raided your house on a no-knock warrant. But see, here's the thing. Not all of these visits by law enforcement to check up on you are a no-knock raid. Here's the thing. They say under the most extreme and dire circumstances that they do these. Well, they're not being done under the most extreme and dire circumstances. What you have is a situation in which someone makes an allegation. They take it to a judge. That judge is going to have to look at the documented circumstances in this secret proceeding and to make an honest judgment call based on the stated facts and the documentation he has in front of him. He has a decision to make. He may be concerned that if he makes a bad decision or a bad call based on these fine law enforcement officers and their testimony, well, gee, something bad can happen if I don't do something. And if something bad happens, the media is going to put it all out in the public and say, it's your fault because we came to you with this red flag petition and we gave you evidence and you failed to act. It's almost like putting a gun to the head of a judge and saying, we dare you not to sign it. There could be political ramifications and consequences if you do not. I just wonder how many judges are brave enough to say no to these emergency red flags. Their jobs are, for the most part, they're political. They have to run for office. They have to curry favor with the political party of choice. They have to seek their endorsements to get their names on the ballot and to get the people that are within their political circle to support them. Their jobs are highly political. How they get elected, the people that endorse them. And you know, the thing is, what do they value more? Do they value getting those endorsements? Do they value being in those jobs? Do they value having all the trappings of their profession? Or do they really, truly care about each and every one of you? Push come to shove, well, I'll let you all make up your own mind. I don't tend to give anyone a blanket blessing. I don't say because a person is a judge or a person is a law enforcement officer that means that they're automatically a good person. No, it does not. People in these positions do bad things all the time. I'm not saying it's an epidemic, but there's evidence of wrongdoing of people in any profession. It's not just law enforcement, it's bad teachers out there. There's bad wait staff. There's bad people in every walk of life. How do I assess your character? I personally assess your character by how you act, how you were raised. What do you do? What don't you do? What won't you do? What type of person you are. That's how I assess someone's character. These red flag laws are just, there's only one word I have for them. And people think I'm over the top and exaggerating. I think they're evil. And I've given you my case as to why I feel that way. So, and you know, the moral of the story, I guess, if you don't like red flag orders, the red flag law in general, there's a remedy for that. The remedy for that is to get rid of them. How do we get rid of them, Rick? Oh, gee, we have the power of the vote. Don't vote for anybody that votes for this madness. As a matter of fact, I can't tell you who it was, but I was talking with a local government official. And we had some dealings on another matter, and this local government official just truly did not understand this stuff. As I explained it to her and outlined it to her. And she was like, oh, well, I didn't know that this is what that was. And I'm like, well, gee, how do you not know what this is if you're at your job and they're saying, hey, vote for this? Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I believe that if you're an office holder and someone asks you to vote for something, you know what? Silly me, I think that you should at least read it and understand it. And you know, as part of learning more and more about the legal process, you know, I learned some really interesting things. I remember back earlier in last year when they were having all these public meetings up in Lansing. You know, they would have the courtroom full of witnesses who were at those two cases we talked about up in East Lansing and over in, what's the other town? Oxford. And it got so ridiculous the amount of witnesses they let them have. It got so bad they let them have witnesses of people who weren't even there, right? They had witnesses. I remember this one woman's testimony, and I really could not believe that they allowed her to testify. Her testimony was that her son went to that school, went to Oxford, and she heard of some calamity on the news. She heard or getting various phone calls, and she was thinking that her child was actually at the school when the shooting happened, right? And so, key point of the story was her son wasn't even at the school. So she was allowed to sit in this subcommittee hearing on red flag laws for no reason whatsoever, because she heard about it. She thought her kid might have been there. She felt some kind of way about it. So she get to consume all of this precious time to take testimony during the open comment period of this proposed law. And you know what? It really got bad. They only allowed the pro-gun people to have 2 people testify. Those 2 people testified together, and together their testimony was 10 minutes. Pro-gun, anti-red flag, 2 people, 10 minutes at the same time. And that's all the time that we got. Hour after hour after hour, witness after witness. Many people weren't even there, were not affected, but they got to talk about their feelings and how it made them feel. And I'm like, oh my God, is this how we actually make it pass laws in this country? In this state? Are you serious? Yes, this is what they do. Am I ranting? Any questions or concerns about red flag laws? Question from the video group. Pastor.
Well, just the real deal. What Rick was speaking about. All you have to do is do a simple Google search. There have been several people who have been hit with these red flag laws without due process, all those things. And the first one of the ones early on in the infancy of the red flag laws was up in the state of Maine, I believe it was. And it was an ex-wife who called in on her husband. They did all this. They got to his door, and they kicked his door in. He came out. They shot and killed him, shot and killed his dog, and took his guns. And then told the media what a bad person he was. So it's Constitution was written for reasons. So it sounds far-fetched to a lot of people that somehow somebody would do that, but it's happening, and there's a lot better way to handle that. Rick kind of dealt with that early on in his introduction of that.
There was another question.
Isn't there federal laws over all the states? I mean, our Constitution protects us from illegal search and seizure. So the states now are doing it. I mean, is it? I don't know. That's a lawyer question. I don't know if he's.
It's a lawyer question. That's for I'm not sure. But what I will tell you this is that I'm trying to remember what state it was. It's really funny because the people associated with the state, I actually know them, right? When I say I know them, how does Rick know them? I am last April, I was elected to the board of directors of the National Rifle Association. So by being on that board, it's me and 75 other people who plot the direction and the path of what the NRA is doing. And one of my fellow board members in his state, I'm trying to remember what state it was. Can't recall right now. I'm having a senior moment. But anyway, in their state, it was just announced less than a month ago that their state's red flag law was knocked down by using the Bruin decision. Bruin is like a major gun rights decision case that was handled by the Supreme Court. And we think in the gun rights community, it serves as a potential blueprint to knock down these red flag laws all over the country where they exist. You know, it's just a question of finding the right case, being able to look at the material facts of those cases and see if a compelling argument can be made to knock these red flag laws down. We have one state that has done it successfully, and there's another state that's in the process of doing it. And man, I am confessing right now to having my senior moment, not remembering what state that is, but I'll tell you what, as soon as we're done for the day and I'm like on my way home.
Are you referring to Bruin?
Yes.
New York?
Well, Bruin was used as the underlying case to knock down this red flag law in this particular state. And I can't remember what state it is, but it's New York. You know, New York. I still got it. I'm on delay. What is that like
It's still a senior moment.
It's still a senior moment, even though I recovered it before we were done today. Any other questions on these red flag laws? Oh man, let me tell you, like I was saying, it's just bad news. Yes.
Not that they, because of the Oxford thing, I would say there was a lot of red flags. I mean,
That were missed, that probably would have given people a cause for concern.
Well,
Yeah, some of the things that
the
were
fact
heard.
that the school called the parents in the school for, number one, why did the parents get called into school that morning? Someone had a concern, but someone didn't carry that concern, so someone had, I would say, a red flag. You know, and all these drawings and stuff that Ethan was doing.
There's a lot of disturbing testimony.
Yeah.
And you know what? There were other people, an argument could be made that they should be equally culpable.
I agree. That's
that
why
they
I said
knew something, right?
Right, that's why I said the school called the parents in that morning for a reason. So why didn't, now you gotta, I mean, I have to be careful what I say because I said something to someone that lives up in Oxford. And everybody has their own feelings. But I agree with the man that said her affair had nothing to do with it. She was a bad mother. She ignored her child, didn't get him the help that I think he wanted. Obviously, he was doing things for it. But you might question the person that called the parents in the first place.
Yeah, there's I think in my personal opinion, right, I'm very opinionated, and many times I don't restrict myself and censor myself, but you know what? Yeah, I believe that there are more people who are culpable and responsible. Yes?
Did you want to talk maybe a couple minutes about the sheriffs in red counties that have stated they won't enforce these laws and they're signing resolutions?
Well, my opinion on it?
Yeah, talk about it. I mean, we know.
I mean, you know, there are a lot of law enforcement officers, particularly sheriffs in particular counties, that tend to be, let's just say it, freedom loving, right? Gun owning, gun loving, gun honoring, Second Amendment. They look at it and they say, you know, this is wrong. And we as the chief principal law enforcement agency in this area, in this county, we refuse to enforce it. We think it's wrong, and some have gone forth to say that it's unconstitutional. And you know what? It's that sheriff's prerogative to not enforce what he perceives to be an unjust law. Now, there could possibly be consequences, and those consequences relate to that sheriff's constituency. If enough people that he represents, if enough people whose votes he's counting on to remain in office and to get reelected, that will be the ultimate judge. That would be the ultimate determinant as to whether the people in your district, the people in your county, if they're on board, if they agree, and that you're on the same page, they should be retained. Some sheriffs, I don't know. I'm guessing they have a good handle on their constituents before they take a stand. And if they don't, you know, good form on taking a stand anyway.
Well, they did during the lockdown, perhaps, Shiawassee County, Tuscola County, Oakland,
Yeah,
everybody north of there.
that whole lockdown business, man, that's still got a taste in my mouth. But you know, the thing is, you know, and it's really interesting that you mentioned the lockdown because I do an annual free shooting event for women. And it was during the lockdown where there wasn't anything for people to do. They couldn't go to work, they couldn't in many cases earn a living. The kids weren't in school, so you had all these people at home, all their kids at home, nothing to do, so people were bored. And I just happened to have this free women's shooting event happen that weekend. And they could either stay cooped up in the house with the kids, or they could come hang out with Rick and his buddies, his crazy Second Amendment folks, and learn how to shoot for free. And ironically, that was the largest iteration of that event that we had. I mean, we had like a huge spike. I think the previous year we had only trained just under 1,000. And we doubled it just in that next year, we hit 2,000. And next year, of course, we dropped because everything came back online. But there's still steady growth, and I'm still committed to the program. As I stated earlier, over the 12 years that I've done it, we have trained roughly 9,000 women for free on how to shoot and operate a handgun, and looking to cross 10,000 this year. It's truly the thing that I enjoy, and I can hang my hat on it. When I one day leave this place, I can feel really good about empowering people and doing a good thing. Question?
What is the next one?
The next one, the date is already set. I can't tell you the exact date, but I'll tell you when it happens. Okay. It has been standardized by me to be the last weekend in July. Look at a calendar and look at July, and you'll see that last weekend, that Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to do it 2 days. This year, I'm still figuring out how I'm going to do it. There's some things I have to figure out in terms of which range is going to do what, and some of that stuff I haven't really publicly published, and then here I am recording it on video. But yeah, it will be the last weekend in July, right? I should think before I speak more. Kyle, is that you? Kyle, is that you?
Kyle?
Yeah, you're not Kyle, right?
No, I'm Adam.
I'm looking for Kyle. Kyle is supposed to be here by now. But anyway. Anything else on red flags before I take over to the next topic at hand? We have another onerous gun law to talk about, right? What is that gun law? Of course, we're talking about... Pastor, do I have that this one up there on the screen too?
Is it up on the screen?
Did I give it to you to have it on the screen?
No.
Or
sorry.
Do you have it in that text I sent earlier?
I can print that one out for you.
Yeah.
I got one.
Let's take a 5-minute break. Technical changes. 5 minutes, and I'll get this slide up, and then we will start talking about this registration business. Just one more rights infringing impediment to our freedom, right? There he is.
Hey, you look. How are you? Great to see you.
Yeah. Everything going good?
Yeah, good. Sorry, I'm a little late.
No. See, here's the thing. You hear me? Look, the committed are always there, right? Don't worry about the ones who aren't there. See the world. All right. See the world.
family was dead, so I let it go. Fast forward, I have a crazy family that I really got distance with. I just don't recently, my father passed away, and last year my daughter passed away. Meanwhile, my mom, say it like that, had determined that I got all this money, insured money, and I owe them. That they gonna come up here. I didn't tell them. So I said, let me give you a good.
So you were responsible for my
guys.
Cold here.
Oh, for the ladies event. Well, thank you for doing that.
Find out.
Thank you. I can't do it without it.
There was a line.
Which year? The 2020, the real big one?
Yeah.
Man, let me tell you, I had no idea so many people were gonna turn out. I had no idea. It was like, you know how like whenever you do something and you're hoping for the best? You know, it might not be the best, but you know what, you still have your fingers crossed and you're like, let's do it, let's see what happens. And then for something just to happen, you know, and it's like all the forces in the universe are conspiring to make this thing happen. Like it's something you can't foresee, but when it happens, it's something that's really, truly great for the whole
place was full of women. You turn around, all these women.
Man, it was wrapped all the way around.
I'm in the range.
All the way
With
around.
the looking, and one goes, one comes right back in. It was never.
But it was a great thing to behold. That was really special. You know, I'll never forget that. But you know what? Onward and upward. We're doing it again this year. We'll probably, we'll do at least 1,500. And that'll take us over 10,000 for the lifetime of the program. It's great.
Well, I just said 5,000.
How many years? How many years have you been doing it? 10 years? 10 years to get you 5,000? What's your frequency?
Well, I did it in a gun shop, and I recently moved to a gun shop, and I'm going to start doing it on my own.
Okay.
So it's getting slow start. Right now, I'm only doing 2 classes a month.
Okay.
I'm going to try to keep it right around 50.
Definitely. Here's the thing. The key point is to start. Once you start, just keep plugging away.
Oh, I know.
Plugging away. Plugging away.
Well, I do have an advantage today. I'm affiliated with
That's good. You've already got a good stream of people calling through. Oh, yes, ma'am? Yes, sir? Hey. I open it up, I'm the one over there, when I'm not there, you know, they're at my disposal, if I need them in a minute, they're right there. I don't even have to worry about it. Let's say for example, now, when you're home, the door is open. No, when you're home, do you have access to your gun or not have access? Right there. Okay, so it's right next to you. Oh, they're right within, I have a handgun with me all the time. Okay. It's in the safe. Right. I just was curious, if you have at least one accessible to you. One goes within arm's
anywhere.
length, right?
It's next to me in bed.
Arm's length,
Yes,
right?
in bed, it's within reach.
Yeah.
When I'm in bed.
And see,
When I'm watching TV, it's on the coffee table.
Some people say, I guess you just like, I mean, look, in my community, right? In my, thank you. In my community, it's not uncommon for people to try kicking in your door and come in your house. They might say, hey, well, you know what? It's just Rick there. Hey, let's pay him a visit. I don't think I gave you one.
Oh, thank you.
Let's just pay him a visit. And let's just.
It's a good feeling knowing that they're secure from theft or from somebody who might use one. I mean, I don't want someone to grab my gun.
You know, my thing is, look, you commit a home invasion. That's a very violent act.
Thank you, sir.
Right? You're welcome. That's a violent act. Oh, thank you. It's a violent act. And I need to make sure I properly treat you. I'll ask them more. Let me tell you, low tech still works. Ink and paper still works. It's not readily updatable, but it still works. It still works. I still got it. Oh well. I need to pass the button to give me one more because I gave away the one I had.
All right, Rick, I want to let you. I don't know. Rick, what? France.
Oh, good. I don't know if we ever met.
No, I don't think we have. I've seen you on your videos and stuff. That opinion, right?
Which way did you go?
Yeah, he's in his office. Just go down, just take the right to the first hallway, and then the second hallway. You'll see, you can't miss it. Oh, there. You'll be waiting.
Okay, who didn't get the last thing? Yeah.
I didn't.
If you run out. Oh, yeah. You know what? Had I had the energy, I probably would have put it in electronic format. And since you all signed up, I have your email. I could have emailed it to you all. Guess who didn't have that much energy? I said if you run out. Yeah. Okay. I had it. Okay. Here we go. Safe storage of firearms, right? I forgot. We got more people that need a copy? Everyone have a copy? Hard copy, everyone has a copy? Okay. Here we are about safe storage of firearms. And you know what? This whole thing about registering firearms in the state of Michigan, it has a very sordid, dirty history associated with it. It really does. There was a time in this country in which gun rights were not a high priority for a lot of different people. Here in the city of Detroit back in the 20s, there was a physician. There was a gentleman by the name of Osman Sweet. He was a native son of the city. He went down south to learn to be a doctor, went to medical school, came back home to Detroit, Michigan, and he wanted to start a practice. He wanted to serve his community. Dr. Osman Sweet was a black man. He lived in a black community. The city of Detroit was highly segregated during that time. During that time era, the modern civil rights movement haven't really gotten off the ground and really achieved a certain level of activity to make significant change during that era in the 20s. You know, we still had segregation and Jim Crow and a lot of those other unfortunate crimes during that era. But Dr. Sweet, after working as a physician in his community, he started to become very successful. He was serving a community that was underserved. So he was very popular, and he achieved a lot of success. And after a period of time, he felt that a man of his stature and a man of his success should have the trappings of that success. He should be able to afford a certain lifestyle, and he wanted to do nicer things for his family. It's not anything different than anyone else would want to do. You want a better way of life for yourself. You go to school, you get a job, you make some money, and you start spending it on your family, and you start acquiring possessions. This is the natural order of things. And so after he achieved a certain level of success, he felt that he should have a home befitting his stature and his status in the community. So he found a house over on Virgil Street here in the city of Detroit. This was a home in a deed-restricted community. Basically, on the written document, the deed, it had a deed restriction. It stated that this home could not be sold to a black person or to a black family. Well, Dr. Sweet was not going to be deterred. He made some contacts in the community he selected to reside in. He found a couple that was eager to sell. Now, to this couple, the only color that mattered was green. It wasn't the person's skin color. It wasn't whether they were white. It wasn't because they were black. He successfully executed the sales transaction. When Dr. Sweet and his wife and he brought his brother, his wife, and another couple of friends to come over and to help him move in and to stay in that residence. Dr. Sweet had heard some rumors of what things were like in that community, and he was hoping that nothing negative or bad would occur. Well, when word got out that a black family had bought that home and they moved into that house, unfortunately at nightfall, a huge crowd of people started gathering on the grounds of their residence. And every night this incident unfolded. However, with each additional night, there were more and more people that were congregating outside of the home. According to documented resources such as newspapers that were operating during that era, on this night in question, there were no less than 500 people outside of this home protesting. Get out, move, leave, and some other choice things that I won't mention. But here's the thing. The operative idea was they wanted them gone. And there were even law enforcement officers that were watching this mob outside of the home, chanting certain things and basically ordering them to leave that community and to abandon their home. One particular night, there was an individual from the mob who fired into the Sweet home. Once he fired his firearm into the Sweet house, the Sweets returned fire. That returned fire killed 2 men that were in the mob. At that point, the police that were there on the scene observing this mess, they decided to take action. They took action by storming the residence. As they stormed the residence, they arrested everyone inside, and they arrested them, and they were going to interrogate them and proceed to prepare a package to charge them with assorted crimes. Now, in this era, you have to keep in mind that we don't have many of the legal protections that we have today. Miranda had not even existed yet. We all know what Miranda is, right? That is your right to remain silent. You cannot be forced to incriminate yourself. You could say, look, I have a right to remain silent and I'm doing that. Well, they didn't have that during this era. They could basically question you all throughout the evening or do whatever they need to do from an interrogation standpoint to get the information they needed from you to prosecute you. Things that we frown upon now, things that are illegal now, but you still hear about people violating their rights to remain silent. Even this very day, you hear about cases from time to time. So anyway, this case started to get a lot of notoriety, and a lot of famous people of that era associated with Detroit were involved. As a matter of fact, the person who was the chief judge in this case was no longer than Frank Murphy. Frank Murphy, his name is on the building downtown. He went on to become mayor of Detroit. Later, he became the United States Supreme Court Justice. Let's see, the NAACP got involved because they thought it would be a good idea if they could fundraise for Dr. Sweet, and they were able to secure the services of famous attorney, Rick, you have a memory fog again. The Scopes trials, who was it that did the Scopes trials? It'll come to me in a minute. So anyway, they secured this famous world-renowned attorney to represent the Sweets, Dr. Sweet.
Darrell?
Yes. Yes.
Clarence
Clarence
Darrell.
Darrell, yes. Thank you. Clarence Darrell was actually the defense attorney, and they prosecuted what they felt was then the case of the century. This was the biggest news, it was national news, and it happened right here in the city of Detroit. And case proceeded. By the time it was resolved, it resulted in a verdict. An all-white jury of 12 men acquitted Dr. Sweet of shooting and killing those two people that were attacking his home. And this became the proverbial castle doctrine case. This was the case that defined that your home is your castle, and you have no duty to retreat from your home if someone is attacking you at home. So, very historic case. However, one of the things that happened as a consequence was this case that happened in 1925 in the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan, in its infinite wisdom, decided to enact the Michigan Firearms Act of 1927. And this was the most draconian set of anti-gun legislation that had ever happened in the state of Michigan. And as a matter of fact, it was ahead of its time in the country about some of the sweeping things that it required people to do. It created the infamous county gun boards, where every county had a gun board. Some of you had CPLs in the era of the county gun boards, right? And you remember that you had to apply before those boards, and the results from those county boards varied from county to county. They had so-called community standards. If you lived on farm country, if you lived out in the suburbs, they gave them pretty much to anybody that wanted them. If you were in a predominantly minority community, or a community that had a lot of minorities in it, it was very discretionary. And by discretionary, that means that you just can't apply for it and get it if you meet some very basic uniform standards. Okay? And so, predictably, this system of discrimination existed in this country, in the state of Michigan, all the way up until 2001. Michigan struck down one of the few last remaining Jim Crow laws here in the state of Michigan. And with that, we got our shall issue licensing scheme here in the state of Michigan. One of the holdouts from the Jim Crow era, that's where this law came from, handgun registration. That's how we got handgun registration in the state of Michigan. And this law has persisted in Detroit for a long time. As a matter of fact, Detroit is only one of a handful of cities that have this handgun registration law. Let me give you a hint. The other cities in this country in which this handgun registration law exists are in cities that are predominantly populated by black people. Yes, I'm telling you very plainly and very bluntly, it's a racist gun law. That's the sole basis for which it was created, and it still exists on the books. And it really unnerves me when I see black politicians, particularly the Democrats. I'm not picking on them because they're Democrats. I'm picking on them because they're hypocritically black people fighting for gun laws that was used against black people to discriminate against them. It's like they don't know their history. And the thing about history is if you don't know it, is that you're doomed to repeat it. Accordingly, a couple of days ago, we repeated that racist history of requiring registration of guns. Now it not only applies to pistols, but now it also applies to these background checks that we need to be performed on long guns, rifles, and shotguns when we purchase our new firearms. Right? So, that gave you the long, sordid, dirty history of these gun laws that exist. So, here is a matrix, and all a matrix is like a graph. On one axis, like up and down, you have the category of the firearm, like pistol, or whether it's a long gun, or whether it's a shotgun. And across the top of the matrix, you have the situation, right? The situation, for example, in our first rectangle at the top, don't have it on the board, but our first rectangle in the upper left-hand corner concerns itself with a pistol. A pistol which is a non-FFL seller. A non-FFL seller is someone who's not a gun dealer. So if we have a person who's not a gun dealer, and we have a situation in which there is a private buyer, and the buyer has a CPL, then if he's purchasing a pistol, the only change in the current law is that the seller is responsible to submit the completed RI-60. You all know what the RI-60 is. When you purchase the firearm, you have to go get it signed and you turn it in to your local police department. And you turn it into the local police department so they can do what? Register. So they can put it in the lien system, and so that your handgun is essentially registered in the system, right? All of our handguns are in the computer system. You know that, right? Mm-hmm. So if on a traffic stop, what's one of the things you're, as a CPL holder, what's one of the things that you're immediately required to do? You have to immediately disclose that you have a CPL and that you have a gun. And then, of course, you do what was taught to you in your CPL class. Go slow, take your time, check and make sure the other officer knows what's going on. Don't make any sudden moves. At the risk of irritating the officer, over-communicate, right? Follow all instructions and all of that, right? So, if we go down one rectangle, we're talking, well, let me go completely across. Let's just do all pistols first. Okay, so if we go over to the next column, we're talking about a non-FFL seller. That is, this is a person who is not a gun dealer. We're talking about a pistol, right? It's a private buyer, and the buyer does not have a CPL. In this case, the only change in the law is that the seller is required to submit the completed RI-60 form. Right? The RI-60, or whatever they're going to call it in the future, because the RI-60 was the pistol sales record form. Well, this may get renamed to a firearm record sale. So we'll see when they come out with these forms what they actually are. Okay?
I see in both those situations the same. You said only the seller in both of those cases has to submit the R1.
RI-60?
Yeah.
Let's
In
see.
the first column or second column, is it only, in the first column, is it supposed to be only the buyer?
Only change is the seller who's responsible.
The whole seller.
Okay. Okay, same situation.
Just two different forms.
Oh, two
Okay.
different forms.
Forms are different.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right.
Oh, R1. Oh, okay.
Next column. FFL seller, private buyer. Buyer has a CPO. Only change is the seller is responsible to submit the completed RI-60 form. FFL still must run a mixed background check. Okay? Next column. We're just hitting the columns one at a time. I really like this matrix. I didn't create this matrix, by the way, so don't say that I created it and I came across it. I was like, hey, this is great. I can use this in my class. If anyone, by the way, if you're seeing this video on YouTube, right? If you know who the author is, please forward that information to me. I'll make sure I give him proper attribution and credit. Last column. Again, pistol. FFL seller, private buyer. Buyer does not have a CPO. Oh, here's my speaker. Seeing where he's at, right? I have another speaker. Hello? No, I haven't. What's up? You still coming? Okay, so what are you telling me? That you're not coming? I'm doing like my last topic, man. If you're not like in the neighborhood, you're not going to make the class. You gave me your assurances you were going to do this. And what was the that you're not coming? Well, still, even if you texted me this morning, you still didn't show up when you said you were going to, whether you texted me or not. I mean, I really don't see how this is my problem. We talked about this days ago. Well, you know what? Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you for your apology. It doesn't solve the problem. Have a nice day. Thank you. I apologize for my behavior. I promise to refund you everything that you paid to attend this class.
We're giving you our gun locks back.
Anyway, right? Last column. Let me tell you, grin and bear it. Push through, right? No bad news is going to change my mood, right?
Woosah.
Woosah, is that how you do it? FFL seller, private buyer. Buyer does not have a CPO. Buyer must first obtain a LTP RI-10. That's this new form, right?
What does that do?
This is what you're going to use to, yes.
On the RI-10, it's calling for a notary. Wow.
Okay, well, maybe you'll have to get it notarized, I guess.
That's going to be a pain.
It's a permission slip.
Well, this fits in the theme of everything we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
You know, these gun laws do not respect you.
No.
They make you subservient to the government. You must comply to get certain privileges. It's not like the Constitution actually means what it says, right?
This is even applying to non-FFL holders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to get it notarized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. FFL sale does not have to run a NICS background check, but it is not prohibited from doing so, but cannot complete the sale until the buyer first has an LTP. That's this RI 010. I really like this document because it's all laid out exactly what the situation applies. And of course, now we're going to start talking about long guns. Long guns is either a rifle or a shotgun. The first column, last row. Long guns for a non-FFL seller, private buyer, buyer has a CPO. This RI 060 or possible used new Michigan State Police form to be determined, right? They're still working, must be completed by the seller, includes seller's CPL number. No paperwork submission required after the sale. This was a huge question that I was getting from a lot of people. They wanted to know. This was like the #1 question we were getting, so we finally have an answer. Second column, non-FFL seller, private buyer, buyer does not have a CPO. We have buyer must first obtain this LTP, this RI-10, no paperwork submission required after the sale. Okay. Third column, FFL, private buyer, buyer has a CPL. FFL must run a NICS background check unless buyer has first obtained an LTP, which is not required for long guns. Here we go, additional note. RI-60, possible new form, Michigan form, hasn't been to be developed, right? Must be completed by FFL, but is not required to be submitted after the sale. And this is the same exact situation for the last column, which is the FFL seller, private buyer, buyer does not have a CPO. So here we have it in this nice, handy dandy matrix. I detest and I abhor it that we have now extended the process. There's some things that are different to long guns, but from a personal, historical level, it is a gun law that was created back in the day under the guises of protecting races. So I really don't have a lot of affinity for that. Any questions on registering guns?
Are your already purchased long guns, are they exempt from all this crap?
Yes. Thank God. But you know what? Hold your breath. They still got time. As of right now, yeah. But who knows? Who knows what's coming? And I'm not saying that tongue in cheek, I'm saying it as reality. If they control every branch of the government, they can do whatever they want. And since they control the state Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court can say, yeah, that was constitutional. Yes.
A lot of that came out from the right after the Black Panthers showed up on California State House with rifles, right?
A lot of what? Gun control in general?
And long rifles in particular.
Well, long guns are not a problem in Michigan, right? Haven't been a problem. It's only now when this state, in its infinite wisdom, decided that we needed to more tightly control and track handguns. But see, here's one of the interesting things. If you actually do the research, you do the research on how people die or how people are actually killed. This information is actually on the Michigan State Police website. And you can find the appropriate Excel sheet. Well, it's not, I believe it's the government site, but they have it for all the states. But long story short, you can actually look at the data. You look at the data there. With regards to tracking long guns, here in Michigan, we're treating them like they're the scourge, like they're public enemy #1. More people are killed with a knife, at least 10 times as much with a knife than you are with a long gun. You look at the stats. They're also disproportionate with respect to blunt objects like hammers and bludgeons. People are beaten to death more than people are killed with rifles. Actually, before we even look at controlling rifles as it relates to homicides, we need to tightly control knives, bricks, hammers, and blunt objects first. If we're doing it on the basis that they're used to commit homicides.
No, this is part of the new laws that just came out on Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah, these.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm in the process of paying for a rifle that I started to buy before this, so it's not subjected to this.
What, you're saying because you saying because you started the process?
Yes, I bought it, but I had it in layaway. So,
well, I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, you haven't really bought it because you haven't paid for it.
Okay.
And until you pay for it, until you pay for it, you can't then take possession and ownership of it.
Okay, so I might have another form to fill out when I go and pick it up today.
I can't say definitively, but you know what? I bet you that you will.
Okay, well, I will let you know what happens after today.
Yeah. We shall see.
Yes.
We shall see. We shall see.
Okay.
Question, yes.
So, they were saying earlier about, my long guns that I had already. So,
You got some long guns? Okay. They steal your long
so you
guns?
still gotta register everything.
No. You got long guns at the house. They your long guns. And
Okay, so my truck name is fine.
Okay, it's fine.
But not my hand.
You have a handgun. Okay, if you already own a handgun, the handgun should have already been registered, right?
So.
Oh, wait. We confess this thing. Me and you can talk. And I'll edit this out of the video. No. If you got some situations that are sensitive, we can have those conversations.
Okay, it's hypothetical.
That's not even gonna fly after what me and you will have to talk.
I just want to
We will talk.
We're in the house
We
of the
will
Lord.
I just want the stuff I already
I
have.
think some people in the government don't like me as it is, but me and you will talk. Any other questions? Well, let me tell you this. It has been indeed my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to conduct this informational session. When I heard about these laws taking effect, I felt compelled to do something, to at least let people know who are interested and have a desire to learn this stuff and to put it out there and remove the excuse that you didn't know. Not only did you feel that something was lacking, you took the extra step to actually show up, register, and attend. And to that, I'm impressed by you all. You did something you didn't have to do because you felt that it was in your best interest to do so and to protect yourself against the government. Yeah, I know I'm sounding like a weirdo and a kook, but that's all right. It goes with the territory. I want to publicly thank Pastor Buddy for allowing us access to his church. He and I go back several years. He's a real good friend of mine, and I was very honored that he allowed me to use his church. Now, to be quite frank, he allowed me to use his church free of charge. So I haven't even talked to him, but I know we're in church. He's a pastor. He let us use church. Could we donate to the church something to him? I'm not putting $1 on it, but can we all contribute and donate something to Pastor Buddy for allowing us to be? He might be speechless like right there because he didn't know I was going to do this, and he did not expect me to do this. But no, I really feel that we should take up an offering amongst ourselves to give.
It's entirely up to you all. It's certainly not warranted, but there's a little gold plate up there before you leave, and you just want to walk up there after we get done. That's fine, but it's not necessary, certainly.
Yeah, I'm going to put it.
We're in church. This is what happens in church.
Look, I'm in church. When in church, do what church people do. Yes.
Being on the NRA board, what organizations in Michigan do you find that you work with that are active and effective in Michigan? Is that Great Lakes gun rights, I think?
There are some gun rights organizations in the state. I'm familiar with some more than I am with others. Obviously, by being on the NRA's board of directors, I'm most familiar with the National Rifle Association. Now, having said that, I've been a gun rights advocate here in the state of Michigan for a very long period of time. Not bragging, just saying what it is. In 2008, one of those years, I was actually State of Michigan Gun Rights Advocate of the Year. I was bestowed that honor by MCRGO back several years ago. And so I've been very fortunate to have that recognition by MCRGO. MCRGO, by the way, is a huge sponsor of my women's free shooting event. They paid like the last three iterations of it. They contributed financially to pay for all the ammunition. So I have ties with MCRGO. I love those guys at MCRGO. I appreciate what they do, and I am beholden to them. I appreciate their support. And yes, when you see this, I want your support again this year. And I've had some affiliation and ties in the past with Michigan Open Carry. Michigan Open Carry has supported my women's event. I was doing Michigan Open Carry cookouts and protests and stuff back when there was a time in Michigan when if the police saw you open carrying, they would roust you, would bother you, harass you, put handcuffs on you, write you tickets, and then throw them away, and all sorts of crazy things the police were doing back then. And I was involved in a lot of the open carry cookouts, and I had a couple open carry cookouts back in the day on Belle Isle. And you know, I would never do this by myself, but it was me and like 100 of us would be out at Belle Isle, and we're all open carrying in Detroit. They didn't like us open carrying. And then you had Detroit police watching us, Michigan State police watching us, the federal government watching us, and they're video recording us and stuff, trying to intimidate us. But you know, the whole thing was, it's legal and we have a right to do it. Just because you don't like it, so what? We're doing it at a public park and we're not creating a disturbance. So to answer that question, yeah, I have some deep ties with Michigan Open Carry, Michigan Gun Owners, MGO. I know a lot of guys there and they've supported me and I've supported them in the past. Any other gun rights organizations in the state, I'm not denigrating them, I'm not saying anything bad about them. I just haven't had any formal ties with them or activity with them. I can't say, you know, I don't know them, they don't know me, you know, it's that kind of. Well, what do you think of those guys? Are they good groups? You like to support them? What's your feedback?
There's a Great Lakes.
I mean, I've heard of them, I just haven't had any
I
dealings
don't know,
with them.
that's why I'm asking. I don't get a lot of information. I've donated to them in the past because they're, you know, I didn't really get a lot of information. That what they sent seemed like they were very active and proactive, but I didn't have data, so I haven't continued to donate on a regular basis. Just wondered who was the most, that you thought might be the most effective.
Well, you know, I don't want to go on the record and start saying some group is most effective and not effective, especially when I don't know. Just because I'm not familiar with someone does not in any way
The NRA
cast any.
with any of them to help support local stuff.
The NRA does a lot of things with a lot of local gun organizations in respective states. As a matter of fact, some state associations in some states have a direct tie in terms of being affiliated, and every state doesn't have that type of affiliate relationship. Yes?
Question is off this.
Oh, since we're talking about the NRA, let me mention this. Commercial. You want to hear my commercial? Here's my commercial. I'm on the NRA's board of directors. Last year I was voted the 76th director. As such, I won a 1-year term to the board of directors. So now I am currently actively campaigning to be re-elected to the board of directors, this time for a full 3-year term. If you are an NRA eligible voter, you will receive a ballot in your designated magazine. Your next magazine literally will have a ballot on it. I'm asking you to look at that ballot, find my name, Rick Ector, pencil in that little circle next to it, correctly follow the instructions on addressing it. If you need to put postage on it, whatever you need to do to properly get that ballot to the accounting firm that's doing it, I am asking for your vote. Vote for Rick.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, commercial's over. All right? All right. Next question.
Okay.
Yes.
About locking your gun at home. Okay, you're carrying, and you go someplace and you see a sign you can't take your gun. So you
Like a gun-free zone.
gun-free zone. So now you gotta leave it in your car. I guess the locked car is safe enough for your gun.
Well, you have to have a locked compartment in your locked car.
So one of those.
So I try to stay out of gun-free zones. Honestly, I swear to God, I do. If I can avoid going to a gun-free zone, I don't go. If I have to do stuff by mail, do it by mail. If I have to do it online, I'll do it online. I do not relish going into gun-free zones. For the simple fact, why? Because nobody there is responsible for my safety in there. You know, there have been people attacked in public, in commercial establishments, on the street. If there's a private business that does not want me in their establishment because they have a no guns policy, I'm not required to not go in there. That's just their wishes. But if they happen to know that I'm likely to have a gun because my face is everywhere, right? Doing videos on YouTube, asking people to vote for me, NRA board of directors, they might see me, recognize me, and say, hey, Rick, get out of here. And you know what? I have to do that. If I don't do that, I'm subject to what? Trespassing. And then I'm asking for trouble, and then I'm jeopardizing my CPO. Right? Did I answer your question? Okay. Yes. I went all the way from there to there.
I was following you.
Wait. You caught me during a rant. Okay, I promise I'm going to keep the rants to a minimum. Anything else? Any other questions?
So it should be in the case in the car.
Yeah.
Locked. Okay. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think the last time I heard it had to be locked in the glove compartment. 'Cause if there's
If you have a CPL, the gun could be anywhere.
glove compartment still.
It could be anywhere. Literally, anywhere.
And you were, and I think I remember you teaching us this a long time ago.
Oh, wait,
Yeah,
so I
even
must
a-
be old, y'all.
Even
I
a
get it.
wife, even a wife like sitting in the car and not having one of the CPLs.
Yeah, if you're in the car with your significant other and she doesn't have a CPL and you leave your gun in the compartment area with her, yeah, she's CCW. She could catch a 5-year felony. She could get a 5-year felony. CCW. Yeah. 5 years. 5 years. 5 years. You know what? If there are any women married to a CPL holder or vice versa, any man without a CPL that's married to a CPL holder and needs a CPL to avoid this conundrum, this situation, I know a firearms instructor who's teaching the class a week from tomorrow, February 25th, who would be honored to teach you next Sunday on the 25th. LegallyArmedInDetroit.com. Tell you what, if you're ready, I'll sign you up right now. Don't blink. Let's do it, huh?
It's on E-Course Road, is that what you said?
The class that I'm doing on the 25th, it's over at Recoil Firearms on E-Course Road.
Just took a guess.
Yes. You probably looked at my blog.
Is that the one you're talking about Sunday?
That's the one I'm teaching next
A
Sunday.
week from tomorrow.
What's that?
A week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow, the 25th.
Right.
You want to sign up? Let's get you signed up.
We already had this discussion.
What?
Okay.
I'm James Lopes.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, but
Now,
I checked that
She
one.
does.
you want to sign up?
You gonna go with?
Yeah.
Give me some
I
money.
already signed up.
We got to get her signed up.
She can't be in the car if I have a CPL.
If you have a CPL, she can be in the car. However, if you're about to go in a gun-free zone and you're going to stick your car right there and say, honey, I'll be right back. Once you get out of the car, she's in the car with the gun, she's CCW, and she's guilty of a felony.
Well, why wouldn't I take, I can't take it because it's a gun-free zone.
Right.
All
So
right.
it ain't gonna give me a rest.
All right.
So yeah, we got to get you signed up for the class on next Sunday. 25th.
One question on
Yes,
the
sir.
long gun. When it says not including NFA items, is that assault rifles?
NFA is a whole classifications of guns that the ATF in its infinite wisdom does not feel is a regular, typical garden variety firearm, right? These are things that they feel are inordinately special, and to own and possess them, you need special, super duper authorization to get it. But if you can pass a background check, buy a tax stamp, and submit the required paperwork, you'll get one. People who get things like silencers, well, they're not silencers, suppressors. Well, instead of you going bang, it'll go bang.
So the assault rifles would
It's
probably
not
be-
pew pew like in the movies.
The assault rifles would probably be in those categories.
No, it's not.
No?
No.
Are they new
Assault
laws?
rifle is just a rifle.
All right.
Just a
So
rifle.
there's no
That's all it
special
is.
laws that have come into effect.
They
on
try to
assault
control
rifles
the
like we keep talking
language.
about.
Once they control the language, they'll tell you that this scary semi-automatic rifle is so dangerous that you'll believe that it operates like a fully operated firearm, and it's not. I mean, they both are dangerous. Don't get me wrong. They're just trying to confuse you. That's why you have to know the nomenclature for yourself.
Going
Yes.
back to the gun-free zone. Let's say you go to the store, you gotta go into the store, gotta do whatever, it's a gun-free zone.
Wait. When you say it's a gun-free zone, is it is it a gun-free zone by statute, or is it a gun-free
Well, let's
zone
say by-
merely by sign?
Right, let's say
That's
by-
not in the
Let's
statute.
go by statute.
Okay, by
That way,
statute.
you cannot go in, but you need to go in and do what you gotta do. Let's say you go to the courthouse.
Oh yeah, don't take a gun to court.
You don't go in the
Don't
courthouse.
do that.
But no.
No. If you get anything out of today, do not take a gun to court.
I understood. But let's
No,
say-
we're sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
Okay.
say you go in there, but you know you can't take it in.
Right.
You leave it in the car. There's nobody else in the car but Ed.
Okay.
You don't have to have a box for that, right? Only if somebody's in the vehicle.
long as
Or
nobody
only
steals the
if
car.
you're not.
Well, here's the thing. This new storage law,
Right.
if somebody breaks into your car and you didn't have it properly secured by the statute, you have it in a box, right? And put it in your trunk.
Don't you have to have it, if it's not on you, if it's in your car, you have to have it locked?
Yeah, secure.
Yeah.
What if you disassemble it? Is that secure?
You could disassemble it, but you know what? As a matter of fact,
I mean, if you take
as
it
a
all
matter
the
of fact,
components apart.
that's one of the methods of transporting a rifle in your vehicle to begin with, right? Right? It's like 5 things, and I think like 3 or 4 of them have to apply. Like it has to be unloaded, unloaded, disassembled, in a case, with a lock, and it's another 5th thing. And you can pick any 3 out of 5, right?
And the ammo has to be separate.
And the ammo separate, yeah. Man, I'm telling you, it's all up there.
But what about the storage? If they come and raid you, if the gun is taken completely apart and it's not in a safe with minors in the house, can they take them? Because at that point, it's not a gun.
I don't know.
It's taken apart.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Maybe we're getting philosophical. When is a gun not a gun, right? If I disassemble it, is it now not a gun?
They're just pieces.
They're pieces.
The MCL, whatever the MCL says.
You know what? You know what? I'm going to look into that and give you a definitive answer. I think I know it, but I don't want to just, send you off because I know your family. Your family will hunt me down and find me and hurt me. If you get in trouble with what I told you. I know those guys. They're big and ugly. You tell them I said that. They're big and ugly. You tell them I said that.
He'll be watching it.
Yes.
I had that discussion with our friend Pat, and he said it's either the upper or the lower is not a gun.
I'll get with that.
Yeah. Is the upper or the lower is not a gun.
I'll get with that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I just want clarification on the one thing that I try to make an issue on. And maybe you can give me the answer to it without the attorney here.
What's up?
When they had this meeting with the Crumleys, the counselor had just sent the email.
See, I didn't watch that whole trial like you
I'll
did.
fill you in on it, because I think I understand.
Wait, because this sounds like it's going to be a thing, right? So let me do this.
No, let me
do. What I want to do is this.
Let me ask the question. You can decide if you know the answer.
Okay, we'll do that.
The counselor was the one that organized the meeting. He sent the email to the mother at work with the picture of the geometry, guns, blood all over, all that kind of thing. He sent it just to the wife. The dad had no clue. He was Ubering, all right? So he couldn't get any information anyways. But the question is, the counselor and the dean, in my opinion, were negligent because did you know that when they brought the shooter from his class to the meeting, they summons them. You got to come to this meeting. We're going to have your parents here. He left his backpack in that class with the gun in it. He already had the gun. All right. The dean went to that class to receive his backpack when the bell rang at the end of the period, so nobody would walk out with his belongings, because the kids were still under lockdown. November of 21, they couldn't use lockers because of COVID. So everything they owned was in their backpack.
Me this is going to be a quick question.
All right. Everything was in the backpack.
Let me do this.
Are you asking were they legally able to search his backpack?
Let me do this. Let me take care of everybody, and me and you. I swear to God, I will not leave until I at least hear you out and give you my best answer. Absolutely. Man, you went so far, I forgot all the other stuff you said.
All right, in a simple nutshell, are you asking, did the school have the right to search his backpack?
Right.
Absolutely, they did.
With the parents there.
Yes, without them. Doesn't matter. And Groucho Marx was sitting there. They can still search his backpack. What?
The counselor testified
Yeah.
that it's by law. I couldn't look at his backpack.
But he had the right to.
Absolutely wrong.
He testified.
That's what his
it's
testimony
wrong.
was, but it was inaccurate.
I can testify that I had.
I didn't bring any cash.
Oh, no
I'm
worries,
so
brother. No
sorry.
worries. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
They
Thank you
have
for
every
opening
right
up.
to
Oh,
search that
absolutely.
backpack.
I worked for a school district for 33 years.
The dean is not an attorney.
The behavior of dean, he said it's by law. We
No,
cannot
the
look at
dean
his
is not an
backpack.
attorney.
He can say
The
whatever he
dean
wants.
is wrong.
I worked for a school district for 33 years. We searched lots of kids anytime we wanted.
Yeah. You have absolutely no expectation of Fourth Amendment.
God bless you,
privacy
sis.
over minor
Be safe. Be safe.
None. Absolutely none. They can turn out your pockets.
Then what possessed them